switched to light mode. Marley knew the drill. In Jamaica, at the height of his success, when music and politics were still one, before the fog of censorship rolled into the island, old wounds were opened by a wave of destabilization politics. Stories appeared in the local, regional, and international press downsizing the achievements of the quasi-socialist Jamaican government under Prime Minister Michael Manley. In the late 1970s, the island was flooded with cheap guns, heroin, cocaine, right-wing propaganda, death squad rule, and, as Grenada's Prime Minister Maurice Bishop described it 3 years later, the CIA's pernicious attempts to wreck the economy. Destabilization, Bishop told the emergent New Jewel Party, is the name given the most recently developed method of controlling and exploiting the lives and resources of a country and its people by a bigger and more powerful country through bullying, intimidation, and violence.
Contents.
In response to the fascistic machinations of the CIA, Marley wove his lyrics into a revolutionary crucifix to ward off the cloak and dagger, vampires, descending upon the island. June 1976. Then Governor-General Florizel Glassbowl placed Jamaica under martial law to stanch the bloody pre-election violence. Prime Minister Manley's People's National Party asked the Wailers to play at the Smile Jamaica concert in December. Despite the rising political mayhem, Marley agreed to perform. In late November, a death squad slipped beneath the gates of Marley's home on Hope Road in Kingston. As biographer Timothy White tells it, at about 9 p.m., the torpor of the quiet tropical night was interrupted by a queer noise that was not quite like a firecracker. Marley was in the kitchen at the rear of the house eating a grapefruit when he heard the bursts of automatic gunfire. Don Taylor, Marley's manager, had been talking to the musician when the bullets ripped through the back of his legs. The men were peppering the house with a barrage of rifle and pistol fire, shattering windows and splintering plaster and woodwork on the first floor. Rita Marley, trying to escape with her children and a reporter from the Jamaica Daily News, was shot by one of the men in the front yard. The bullet caught her in the head, lifting her off her feet as it burrowed between scalp and skull. Meanwhile, a man with an automatic rifle had burst through the back door off the pantry, pushing past a fleeing Seco Patterson, the Wailers' percussionist, to aim beyond Don Taylor at Bob Marley. The gunman got off 8 shots. One bullet struck a counter, another buried itself in the ceiling, and 5 tore into Taylor. He fell but remained conscious, with 4 bullets in his legs and 1 buried at the base of his spine. The last shot creased Marley's breast below his heart and drilled deep into his arm. The survival of the reggae singer and his entire entourage appeared to be the work of Rasta. The firepower these guys apparently brought with them was immense, Wailers publicist Jeff Walker recalls. There were bullet holes everywhere. In the kitchen, the bathroom, the living room, floors, ceilings, doorways, and outside. There has since been a widespread belief that the CIA arranged the hit on Hope Road. Neville Garrick, a Marley insider and former art director of the Jamaican Daily News, had film of suspicious characters lurking near the house before the assassination attempt. The day of the shooting, he had snapped some photos of Marley standing beside a Volkswagen in a pool of mango tree shade. The strangers in the background made Marley nervous. He told Garrick that they appeared to be scouting the property. In the prints, however, their features were too blurred by shadow to make out. After the concert, Garrick took the photographs and prints to Nassau. Sadly, while the Wailers and crew prepared to board a flight to London, he discovered that the film had been stolen. Many of the CIA's files on Bob Marley remain classified to the present day. However, on December 5, 1976, a week after the assault on Hope Road, the Wailers appeared at the Smile Jamaica Fest, despite their wounds, to perform one long, defiant anthem of rage directed at the CIA, war, suggesting the Wailers' own attitude toward the vampires from Langley. Until the ignoble and unhappy regimes that now hold our brothers in Angola, in Mozambique, South Africa, and subhuman bondage have been toppled, utterly destroyed, everywhere is war, and consulted a physician who was shocked by the toe's appearance. It was so eaten away that doctors in London advised it be amputated. Marley's religion forbade it. Rasta no abide amputation, he insisted. He told the physician, "The living God, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie I, Rastafari, conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, he will heal me wit, de meditations of me ganja chalice. No scalpel, he said, will crease me flesh. Scient kill Rasta. Rastaman live out. He flew to Miami and Dr. William Bacon performed a skin graft on the lesion. The disease lingered undiagnosed and spread throughout his body. Isaac Ferguson, a friend and devotee, observed the slow death of Bob Marley firsthand. In the 3 years separating soccer injury from cancer diagnosis, Marley remained immersed in music, ignoring the advice of doctors and close associates that he stop and obtain a thorough medical examination. He refused to give up recording and touring long enough to consult a doctor. Marley would have to quit the stage, and it would take years to recoup the momentum. This was his time, and he seized upon it. Whenever he went into the studio to record, he did enough for 2 albums. Marley would drink his fish tea, eat his rice and peas stew, roll himself about 6 spliffs and go to work. With incredible energy and determination, he kept strumming his guitar, maybe 12 hours, sometimes till daybreak. Reggae artist Jimmy Cliff observed after Marley's death, "What I know now is that Bob finished all he had to do on this earth." Marley was aware by 1977 that he was dying and set out to condense a lifetime of music into the few years remaining. The CIA rocks trench down. In 1975, U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, on a diplomatic junket to the island, had assured Prime Minister Manley in a private meeting that there was no attempt now underway involving covert actions against the Jamaican government. But in the real world, something of a Caribbean pogrom was underway, overseen, of course, by the CIA. As Kissinger croaked his denials to Manley, the destabilization push was already afoot. The emphasis at this stage was on psychological operations, but in the election year of 1976 a series of covert interventions, employing arson, bombing, and assassination as required, completely disrupted Manley's democratic socialist rule. An arsenal of automatic weapons somehow found their way to Jamaica. The CIA's thugs, directed by a growing coven of pinstriped officers reporting to the U.S. Embassy in Kingston, quietly organized secret police cadres to stoke political violence. Huge consignments of guns and advanced communications gear were smuggled onto the island. One such shipment was intercepted by Manley's security patrols, a cache of 500 man-eating submachine guns. The firearms were shipped to the island from Miami by the Jamaican Freedom League, a right-wing paramilitary faction with roots in Langley, financed largely by drugs. Peter Whittington, the group's second-in-command, was convicted of drug trafficking in Dade County, Florida. The funds were laundered by the League at Miami's Bank of Perrine. Traveled to Bavaria and checked into the clinic. Dr. Issels met him, looked him over and aloud, without naming sources, "I hear that you're one of the most dangerous black men in the world." The portrait offered by publicity releases from the Issels Foundation is imposing enough. Dr. Issels, born in 1907, founded the first hospital, financed by the estate of Karl Gischler, a Dutch shipping magnate in Europe for comprehensive immunotherapy of cancer in 1951. He was the medical director and director of research. All well and good until it is considered that by this time Dr. Issels was 44 years old. Certainly, his medical career did not begin in 1951. Why the unexplained gap in his bona fides? During World War II, it seems, Dr. Issels could be found plying his research skills for Hitler's SS. Lully claims that Dr. Issels was assigned to the Auschwitz concentration camp, working alongside Dr. Joseph Mengele. But author Gordon Thomas, in a long out-of-print biography of Issels, contends that the doctor served in the SS only briefly. At any rate, he was indeed a member of the Nazi Party and served under Heinrich Himmler. Bob Marley, the dangerous black upstart, had placed his life in the hands of a Nazi doctor. Lully recalls that Marley rejected conventional cancer treatments, wanted to do anything but turn to Western medicine. This may have been a mistake. Evidently so. Dr. Issels said that he could cure Bob, and they cut Bob's dreadlocks off. And he was getting all of this crazy medical treatment in Bavaria. I know this because Devin Evans, a musician then playing with the Wailers, told me that Bob was receiving these medical treatments. Evans came by every 2 or 3 months, 1979 to 80, and told me, "Yeah, man, they're killing Bob. They are killing Bob." I said, "What do you mean they are killing Bob?" "No, no, man," he said. "This Dr. Issels, he's a Nazi." Dr. Issels was one of the scores of Nazi practitioners to escape the attention of the Nuremberg Tribunal. Michael Cater, a professor of history at York University in Canada, informs us that physicians of the Hitler period were steeped in Nazi racial doctrines at medical school, that many of them continued to practice undisturbed by war crimes tribunals. It was in a conventional medical culture, infiltrated from one side by a science alienated from humanity and from another by charlatanry, that young physicians in the Third Reich were raised to learn and prepare for practice, with many predestined to practice after 1945. Dr. Joseph Issels first offered his alternative cancer therapies in a Nazi-fied atmosphere of ruthlessness and quackery. In the 1930s, chronic cancer patients consulted Dr. Issels and received his experimental combination therapy, a regimen of diet, homeopathic remedies, vitamins, exercise. Successfully. It is contended that he is aware of the complete ineffectiveness of this so-called tumor treatment. It also called Issels a flight risk, noting that he had prepared for all contingencies by depositing huge amounts in foreign banks. Marley, unaware of his physician's past, was placed on a regimen of exercise, vaccines, some illegal, ozone injections, vitamins, and trace minerals. In time, Dr. Issels also introduced torture. Long needles were plunged through Marley's stomach through to the spine. The patient victim was told that this was part of his treatment. The torture continued until Marley foundered on the threshold of death. Cedella Booker Marley, his mother, visited him 3 times in the course of the treatments. She found Dr. Issels to be an arrogant wretch with the gruff manners of a bully who subjected her dying son to a bloodless brand of hocus-pocus medicine. Booker Marley. I myself witnessed Issels' rough treatment of Nesta Marley. One time I went with Nesta to the clinic and we settled down in a treatment room. Issels came in and announced to Nesta, "I'm going to give you a needle." Dr. Issels plunged the needle straight into Nesta's navel, right down to the syringe. Marley grunted and winced. He could only lie there helplessly, writhing on the table, trying his best to hide his pain. "Jesus Christ," I heard myself mumbling. Issels yanked out the needle and strolled casually out of the room. Marley was left groaning with pain. I went and stood at his side and held his hand. With every visit, she recalls, I found him smaller, frilier, thinner. As the months of dying dragged on, the suffering was etched all over his face. He would fall into fits of shaking when he would lose all control and shiver from head to toe like a coconut leaf in the breeze. His eyes would turn in his head, rolling in their sockets until even the white jelly was quivering. Marley's torment was aggravated by starvation. For a whole week sometimes, Booker laments, her son, would be allowed no nourishment other than what he got intravenously. Constantly hungry, even starving, he wasted away to a skeleton, starved to death like an Auschwitz inmate. To watch my firstborn shrivel up to skin and bone ripped at my mother's heart. Marley weighed 82 pounds on the day of his death. The starvation diet must have devastated his immune system and rushed his demise, not prolonged his life, as Dr. Issels and some biographers have contended. It also caused him intense pain. It would drag on so, for one long, painful month after the other, and every day would be a knife that death stabbed and twisted anew in an already open, bleeding wound. The agony wrapped him up like a crushing snake. Death finally claimed Marley on May 11th, 1981. In Jamaica, May 20th was declared a national day of mourning. Marley's wake at the National Arena was attended by some 30,000 mourners. He was survived by his old partner Peter Tosh, who was shot to death in 1987. Marley and Tosh were not the only musicians murdered for political reasons in Jamaica. By the end of the decade, all Jamaican musicians were censored and subject to shell-casing politics. The island's Daily Gleaner reported in 1987 that Winston "Yellow Man" Foster stopped at a police roadblock and frisked for drugs, resisted detainment. One of the officers hissed, "You want to go like Tosh?" When Tosh went, there was nothing random about it. Witnesses and friends insist that he was a political hit. 2 of the gunmen fled to New York to remain at large. The third was Dennis Lepo Laban, an ex-con sentenced for the murder after an 11-minute trial.